we go. So we're here today with Courtney Fields Thomas. Welcome, Courtney.
Hi.
It's so nice to meet you and see you. I want everybody that is listening to this recording to be able to get to know a little bit more about you and meet you in this video. So the very first question I have for you is for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself, please.
Sure. Well, I grew up on a farm in New Jersey, and my dad worked at a private high school on a grounds crew, and I was able to go to this private high school for free, which is pretty unique. And this launched me into this world of elite liberal arts education that my family had never encountered before. And from there, I attended Smith College and I focused on literature and psychology and women's and gender studies. I had the opportunity to study abroad at Oxford. I focused my studies generally on women's literature and memoir. And then I had the inspiration to teach. And so I, through Harvard's World Teach program, went to American Samoa and taught fifth grade there and really realized I wanted to become an educator and followed my passion to Brandeis, where I got a master's degree, a dual master's degree in literature and gender studies. And I continued to study memoir, but I really started to focus on teaching there. And I became a TA and I began tutoring there and realized I loved helping emerging adults, adult learners, and late teens learners manage busy lives when I was at Brandeis. So I applied to become a secondary educator and got a job at a private high school. And I was there for 13 years. So I wore many different hats at that school. I was primarily in the beginning a 9th through 12th English teacher. I was also a mindfulness coach, an athletic coach, a justice facilitator. But my primary role became the office lead and core executive functioning coach of the Academic Support Center. And that's where I was most passionate. And I worked at that center for nearly a decade. And that's what launched my career as an executive functioning coach.
Yeah, I mean, it really leads beautifully into the next question, which is what got you interested in executive functioning?
Yeah.
Obviously, you have professional experience. What got you interested? Why EF?
Yeah, I think I have two answers for this question. I think a personal and a professional answer. I would say personally, I think I realized from a young age, because of my dad's job and my opportunity at that private high school, what an incredible resource education is, not just for you, but the community you come from. I could see the social mobility and the opportunity that was going to shift for me and my family. And I think at that time, I realized, well, my family at home doesn't have the same opportunity I have. So I'm going to bring my education home and teach them as much as I can. So in my family, I had a really diverse intergenerational household. And there were people, I'm sure, with undiagnosed learning disabilities and ADHD and who actually hadn't even finished high school. There were some people in my family. So I had people all across the spectrum of diverse learners in my own family. And I would come home and bring information back to them and material back to them. And I started becoming really interested in what it took to kind of coach people around new material. And my family was really excited about this too. It was a really nice um, moment for us as a family where I could share what I was leaving home to do, and they could learn a little bit too. And so I think I was kind of destined to become an educator in some ways because I had this upbringing and this passion for sharing knowledge with my family. And that really exposed me to like a curiosity-driven education model. And then as a professional educator, I've had many experiences where in the classroom, I have to set my material up for a wide range of diverse learning styles and thinkers and nervous systems in the space and make that material accessible to people. So I was very fascinated by that. And as a writing teacher, especially, I realized that I had these really creative and capable students, and they just struggled to get their thinking down on paper. Their process was sometimes the process of writing was sometimes new to them, but ultimately they would have these amazing ideas and they just needed more scaffolding and support to set that up. And so I entered executive functioning through the writing support world. And then once I did, I realized it's so empowering for learners to build EF skill sets. no matter what your learning profile is or the range of challenges you're facing or what you're studying. It just gives any person, any student agency, and self and system understanding to really have this protected space to explore how you do something. And so I think it really has been for me a lifelong passion, but in doing that over the years, it really became my vocation.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I
Mhm.
think even if we're taking a step back, because we're listening to the stories personally, professionally, in classroom, out of classroom, of how you're incorporating executive function and your interest in EF, how would you define executive functioning for somebody who's very new to this, that's listening and going, cool, I'm with her. I could see myself reflected in that family dynamic, or I can see myself or my child in that classroom or in the home struggling to do the words on paper, though I know they're smart.
Mhm.
What is executive functioning and how is it related?
I know. I wish the phrase itself were more accessible because it's such a universal experience. It's really just the how of how we do things. It's the process base of how we do things. And so it can be anything like prioritizing your work, self-control skills and self-regulation skills, planning. And so these very concrete tasks, but it's really just the how. It's like, how do we get from point A to point B? And how do we do it in a way that meets our needs and our potential? And I think we live in a culture that's product focused, outcome focused. And I think workers, students, caretakers, lots of different kinds of people are just under supported around these skills or haven't been taught how to break down the process so that it works best for them. And so EF coaching becomes this very special place where you can build skills about the how and engage in this task with intentionality and figure out, what's best for me? How am I regulating my own stress? How am I um, managing my time in a way that feels good for me and prioritizing things that are important to me. And it ultimately allows you to just live a more intentional and well-balanced life.
So walk us through the how. I love that. EF is the how. Tell folks that are listening that are saying, okay, got you. Theoretically, I got you. I hear it's concrete, I think, but let's get like even more into the minutia of executive functioning coaching itself. And perhaps share with us a case study or an example of somebody you've worked with that came in with issues and you went, all right, I see the vision. I'm listening to you to get you to point from point A to point B, or a coaching exercise that you use regularly. You say, this one usually hits the mark for most. Choice.
Mm. Yeah, I think a lot of the students I've worked with are really driven students. I mean, there are some students who feel less engaged with school, but for the most part, a lot of kids who are coming here do have a passion for education at a certain point, or they had one until they felt discouraged. And I think my first thing I like to explore with my clients is this concept of economy of effort. Um, how are you prioritizing what's important to you? And are you prioritizing what's important to you? And often students just haven't learned that prioritizing is a thing they can do. Um, and we only have so much energy in our tank every day. It's a finite amount of energy. There's a finite amount of hours. We can't do everything at 100%, or we would run out of time or run ourselves into the ground or both. So I think I want to discuss early on with my clients as I get to know them and really help them articulate their value systems and their goals. What is important to them? Where do they want to be in maintenance mode where it doesn't really matter? We just have to get it done. And where do they want to be in this like enrichment mode where they really want to dive in? They want to spend time on it. They imagine doing it in the future. So I try to help them prioritize, and that might look in a very concrete way, like while we're creating a to-do list, can we color code by area of importance? And sometimes it's even fun to help the client associate a color with what's important to them because that can tell us a little bit about like how it feels. They can get to know like purple for me is like an indication that's very important. I think when we start to note this isn't as important, this is a moment where they can start what one of my sayings is like the done is better than good mindset. Like, let's just get it done. It's not your passion to write this paper. You didn't assign the paper. You're not interested. So let's get it done. to what you believe is the best of your ability at a done is better than good mindset. And we can talk about that in detail. You know, how do you know what good enough is? It's a good question for us to explore in sessions, particularly in this process of prioritization. If it's not high priority, what's good enough? If it is high priority, what is good enough? And so as we do these kinds of to-do list building or bucket list building, we start to prioritize a bit with color coding and think about the sort of how and how that correlates to the value systems behind.
Yeah. And I love thinking through too the internal and the external, right? As I'm
Mhm.
thinking about for so many learners, including adults. I know you work with emerging adult and adult clients
Right.
where it's what is life demanding of me? And in a student world, it's what are my teachers demanding of me? What is the area I live in demanding of me? Right? Just these external forces, my parents demanding of me. And so often what we'll see is pushback of like, this is what I want. This is what I want. I want rest. I want Xbox time. I want, hanging out with friends or Snapchatting. And so prioritization, so often it's like, this is what I prioritize. Like, Courtney, I don't want to work
Right.
on the essay, right? I have no desire to study for the math test. How do you then approach students that say priorities? I'll tell you right now what my priorities are. My priorities are
Yeah.
not doing any of this. Well, tell me a little bit more how you'd approach it. Have you done that before?
I love that. I mean, to me, my answer to that is always let's follow the thread of that vision for you. So, where does that take you 1 year down the road? Where does that take you 3 years down the road? And for some people who haven't practiced that kind of horizon timeline of what's in the future for me, when they start to flesh out the answer to that question, they start to question their initial response, which is, well, I just want to have fun all the time, except down the road, I do want to have a job that I feel happy at. So maybe I can't do this all the time if I'm just prioritizing fun or just prioritizing what feels good in the moment. And so I like to tell them that it's a balance between presence and preparation. We want the present moment to feel good, but we also want your future self to feel good. So how can we balance that? And ultimately, I think having them follow threads through the horizon timeline is a really helpful exercise in helping them get there.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you with all your expertise in writing. It is up there as, if not number one of the questions I get most often for those that struggle with executive function. It's right part and parcel, emotional regulation and writing.
Yeah.
Right there. And they're related, as I'm sure we'll explore. But talk to us about writing. Here you are, somebody who is this expert in helping students write, humans write. Give us an example of somebody who came in that was a reluctant, resistant, like, you are not getting me to write. I hate writing. I hate English. I hate reading. And I'm sure you've worked with people like this. So
Yeah.
example of somebody that, if you can help us through a transformation, so parents who may be listening and feeling a little defeated, or students that are listening going, that's me. uh, what does it look like on the other side, and what is the process to get there?
Sure. I love this question, and I love working with students who don't like writing. It's my favorite. I mean, I love all writing with all writing students and students who are struggling or looking for support, but there is something really satisfying about helping a student who really never understood both the how and the why behind writing being so important. So certainly I want to make writing relatable to my client, no matter who they are, at what age or what stage of development. But I also think a lot of times, writing assignments in school, no matter the level at school, are often under scaffolded. So a lot of, I mean, the resistance that comes is real. I really want to honor that when my clients come to me and say, this is not fun, this is overwhelming. I agree with them. I say, yeah, the way that this has been framed is really challenging. It's challenging to a lot of students, and I can see why it's particularly challenging to you. So I like to teach two things. One, that it's very formula friendly. So kids, especially who love a formula, writing is actually incredibly formulaic, and I don't think English teachers always like to teach that because they're often very creative people, passionate people. They want the art at the center of the technique. And for me, I'm kind of a both-minded person. I love art and I love creativity. I write for fun, but I also really love a good system. And so if I can provide a formula that makes that accessible to the client, suddenly, particularly if they've always felt more comfortable in math or science, where there are formulas that are clear and concrete, they're going to find that this isn't much different. Writing a lab is actually, the best example of that, where certainly there's creativity involved, but it's pretty formulaic. You can approach an analytic or even creative writing project in the exact same way. And then I think some people need help moving from the concrete to the interpretive. And I really love to use art for this, like paintings. My colleague and I helped develop a technique that we actually presented on in 2015 called Observation and Inventory. And ultimately, it uses paintings to help people move from the literal to the interpretive. And people are so visual. I think often using visuals to help get to that next level of thinking is really accessible for anyone at any age. And so, particularly if you're in a classroom setting and you have to either move to the analytical and interpretive, or you have to do your own creative work, it's helpful to see what's the difference between an observation and an inference. So once people have really figured out those two components of writing, they can really write anything. And I think making that really accessible and easy from the beginning in any client session, that's how people start to feel comfortable. And then ultimately, writing is hard, and we have to normalize that. And first drafts are always going to be messy, and we can work with that. So I think normalizing the process and helping people figure out how to make it fun in these coaching sessions, because I think I'm pretty fun. I think that ultimately is what sustains people in the writing process. But I love working with people on the writing process. That's ultimately one of my primary passions. So would love to help clients do that.
And of course, it's that progress, not perfection. It's the done, not
Yep.
necessarily even great, certainly not perfect, maybe not even good, but it's done,
Right.
right? Looking at
Exactly.
what that is and in what stage done looks like. So often we talk about an executive function. I'll say it's making the implicit explicit,
Right.
the invisible visible. And I see so much overlap with what you're describing in the writing process. It's
Hmm.
how can I make this, because anything that feels invisible and that other people get it and we don't is going to make us feel all kinds of feelings and
Absolutely.
probably shut down or avoid it.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody else gets this. I'm the only one who doesn't get this. I suck at this. Right. I'm
Yeah.
horrible at this. I can't do this. And understanding the why, but not stopping there. And also not the other extreme of going, sure, you can, sweetheart, right? Sure, you
Right.
can. Just tell yourself kind of positive self-talk. You can do this. Just sit down. All of that I think is well intentioned and can be really detrimental. We know that we are smart. We know that the people that we love are smart, but that's not quite enough to then go from believing something into doing it and having the scaffolding that you're describing to be able to do it and see that progress.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're a strength-based company. We base ourselves really as we're looking at the executive functioning profile of each individual on not only what are the areas of deficit, but also what are the areas where they're really rocking out with their EF strengths. I'll ask you the same question. What are you really good at? What are you really strong in? What brings you real joy?
I love to celebrate. I love life and I love meeting people. I think clients can sense my warmth and genuine curiosity in who they are as people. So I think that might be one of the first things they experience with me is a warm, inviting, and supportive presence. I think I'm also particularly good at helping people feel seen and understood. I think I'm a very active listener. I reflect back key insights well. I think I take time to really get to know people in their complexity. So I think I'm deeply in tune with people. And I think I'm also very insightful. I tend to help make connections where people don't see them right away. And that can be really helpful for people, and help people identify patterns within themselves. And I think I'm also just realistic and down to earth. I think we live in a really demanding world, and I've had my own share of executive functioning challenges. I think I can be really relatable that way. And I really just want people to feel comfortable in a growth mindset with me, feeling like we're just doing the best we can with the tools we were given. Let's see if we can build more tools and just do a little bit better, and help each other along the way. So I would say, I would also add too, I think I'm a really contextual thinker. I think when a person walks in the room or in the Zoom space, and I'm getting to know them, I see and I get to know them through their description of their family systems or the institutions they're navigating and the meaning making systems they're bringing to me. I really see a whole web behind my clients. So whenever I'm working with them, I want to help them see the webs too, so they know how to navigate the systems they're a part of. And that sometimes we're a product of these systems, and that we actually have the ability to change. We might not have chosen the habits that we were born into in our family structures. And so this is actually a moment where you can kind of reclaim agency for yourself and authenticity, because I think executive functioning is more than just managing your workload. It's actually getting to know who you are, being a little bit more self-aware, and aware of your surroundings, so that you can navigate and ultimately cultivate a life that you're really, really happy with. So my goal, I think, in connecting with clients is for them to really see, like, I'm here for your best interest. And at the end of the day, I think I'm really good at centering my clients' needs and passions and curiosities, because this is their time. It's not my time. It really is for them to center what they need. And so their present self and their future self can be served well. Their well-being is centered in everything I do.
I love that. And it goes back to the how. What is
Yeah,
executive functioning? It's the how. But of course, the how and the why are interrelated. And so
absolutely.
if we're just looking at the why, it can feel very conceptual. And
Hmm.
like it hurts, kind of like going to a doctor. I'm just kind of thinking of this. I go to a doctor and go, it hurts here. And it's like, well, why do you think it might hurt? I don't want to focus on
I'm
the
not
why.
the doctor.
I don't know the why, and I don't have any energy to focus on the why. I
Right.
need I need the tools to make this feel better, right?
Yeah.
And so often I know the clients that come to us are in situations in which they have 20 missing assignments. They're in a work plan where their boss has put them on probation, essentially, right? They're in a relationship at home in which they're not carrying their load, and or the dishes are piling up and they're just feeling overwhelmed.
Hmm.
All of those hows, I think you so beautifully know how to help, know how to listen, know how to intuitively figure out really what the client is looking for,
Hmm.
and build the tools in a very practical way that supports the well-being without being too generalized and woo-woo, shall we say?
Right.
Right? Not just how do you feel about piled up dishes, but okay, what are we going to do about this? What's
Yeah.
the plan here? How long has this been happening? All of that. I love that you gave such a complex answer to your strengths. It gives us insight into who you are as a coach and also who you are as a person. And I heard you say, I've had my fair share of executive functioning challenges, which
Yes.
can be relatable. Would you be willing to share a little bit about some of the areas of weakness or some of the areas of challenge that you faced?
Yeah, absolutely. There's hardly a day when there isn't a hard challenge in adulting life, but also just in life. I think we're going to face them. And I think for me, primarily in terms of my patterns, I really have struggled with economy of effort. I think that's why I like teaching about it so much and coaching about it, because I am a really passionate person. I want to give my all to everything. I get really excited about new things, and I can burn my energy out really quickly if I'm not careful, or take too long on projects that shouldn't, require that much energy or time. So for me in my work over time, I've had to really reflect on the prioritization tools of, okay, is this actually priority for me right now? I need to look at a wider lens and see, okay, what else do I have to do today besides this task? And so prioritization has been a really key tool in helping me maintain my economy of effort so that I can still have gas in the tank for things that I really want to do or like to do. And then the other challenge, I think, I've definitely had difficulty with time perception where, and I think these two can go hand in hand, but especially I think with technology, I have a hard time sort of accurately estimating how long something will take or how much time I've been spending on my computer, on my phone. Um, or even if I'm cooking or baking, if the recipe says it takes an hour, I like to add an hour for Courtney time. Like there's just always this self-awareness I need around, I like to do things slowly and intentionally, but that might not always lead me to balancing my energy in the right way. So time estimation practice has been really key for me, and I'll do this with my clients too. I like them to start to practice. How long do you think this will take you? How do you know that? And then when we meet again, how long did it actually take you? Was it shorter or longer than you anticipated? And the more you can build literacy around your own timing needs, the better you get at estimating and holding yourself more accountable to the other people around you. You can hold yourself to deadlines more accurately if you can estimate how long it's actually going to take you to do something. So then you become a better, student or colleague or a cook or baker. So yeah, I think those two have been primarily where I've put a lot of my um, growth mindset effort, and I've seen a lot of improvement in my life around those things.
I love that. And I'm thinking about how many forces compete for our attention and our time, right? So,
Absolutely.
you think about all the tech companies for any of our minds, not just developing minds, though those are particularly susceptible of that casino mindset that everybody knows
Hmm.
in a casino, there are no windows on purpose. You don't know what time it is outside on purpose. And in so many of these apps and online spaces, time is in this vortex. And so reclaiming our awareness of, as you're explaining, and management of these forces that are designed to hook us in, right?
Mm.
Like, of course, writing the essay is going to feel like it takes 7 hours, whereas, fill in the blank gaming system is going to feel like it took 7 minutes. There's a perception there that is by design often.
Hmm.
And recognizing, I love the example you gave. It's such a key EF coaching exercise, right? Of the how long do you think this will take? We're
Hmm.
visualizing there and already exercising in our brains in a way that many are not used to. I am
Hmm.
going to then preview what I anticipate this will take, and then I'm going to track what it actually took. Instead of, we're talking about internal, external forces, the mom in the room saying, get off your Xbox, you've been on it for X amount of time, right? Time to get
Hmm.
started going to school. It's such and such time. Um, I love that you've really managed that, perhaps struggled with it. And I love that you build in an extra hour for baking for cooking time. I love that. I love that. I love that. I don't know if everybody has an extra hour, right? But
No, not always.
it's reclaiming. It's this idea of
Hmm.
where can I not steal time away from my day? We don't have to. We can actually look and preview, how long do I want this to take? How long does
Hmm.
this deserve to have my attention? And when I'm done with it, I'm done. Um,
Right.
what about your experience with Zoom? We're talking a little bit about technology. I would say a big thing that I hear as pushback, which I understand, is parents that will say to me, I have ADHD, or my child has ADHD, my loved one has ADHD, sustaining attention online, everything's competing for their attention. Like, ain't no way they're going to be able
Hmm.
to sustain attention in an online format. Have you heard that before? And if so, how would you respond?
Yeah, and I think it's a nice self-aware concern. I think it's coming from a place where they really want to protect themselves and invest in something that they're going to get something out of and not waste their own time. So I appreciate that concern. I have really come to love coaching online, and I didn't at first because I had some of the same concerns. I was worried I couldn't keep my own attention, let alone the client's attention. I really haven't found that to be true, mostly because, especially when we are doing EF work, it lends itself to tracking the data of when you lose your attention, because that's helpful. Ultimately, what we're doing is starting to notice, when is your nervous system overstimulated? When is it understimulated? Let's get a sense of the pattern. So every time you lose attention, that's actually great data for our session. And so EF coaching is really well suited for online work in that way, because we work with computers and technology. We have to. And I kind of love that our sessions are on the machine that we have to manage, because that is actually the work of our lives in 2025, is to figure out, how do we manage technology? And I think EF and tech are at a crux that are super important. So to me, it makes sense actually that our EF is happening online, so that we can use it as this immersive tool while we're on the computer together. Let's take a second and think about how many times you've gotten a notification. Is that serving you? Would you like to keep doing that? I think there are ways that we can notice, I really can only work for 10 minutes and then I need a break. Okay, that's great. Now you know that. Now you know that you need a 10-minute timer and a 2-minute break, and let's do that together and we'll see how that feels. So ultimately, I think it ends up becoming an immersive tool rather than a hindrance. And then ultimately just the flexibility of, you can, in your very, very busy and overscheduled life, hop on to a 45-minute session in the middle of a busy day. You don't have to drive anywhere. You can be in your sweatpants. You can be comfortable in your own personal space and still get in the thing that really helps you manage your week. So ultimately, I've become a big fan of EF coaching in the virtual space, because I think it can serve us so well.
Yeah. And I know as yoga teachers, both of us,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I think is so beautiful is we can, during the 2-minute breaks that you're talking about, 10 minutes, 2 minutes, if it ends up being that, we can have stretch breaks. We can have breath
Right.
work done, right? We are still embodied creatures, and executive functioning. So often we're talking about cognition, as we well should be. And sometimes I think folks can confuse this medium as one of just pixels on a screen and cognitive tools that are being presented. And I think some of the underlying concern is, what about the emotional? What about the physical? And
Mm,
I know you are so careful and cautious and thoughtful about working with the whole person in front of you.
right.
I will echo that. Me too. Me too. When I first started working in this space, going, I value so much the whole person, that how is this going to translate? And it's one
Mm-hmm.
of the reasons that we do one-on-one coaching. The other person on the other end has our full attention, our full embodied presence is right there with them. And I don't know how many sessions I've been on where I know that somebody's distracted. I know they're looking down at their phone,
Yeah.
whatever. And exactly what you're describing, it's such a wonderful testing ground, not for shame, but for self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Often in classroom settings or work settings, you don't get to practice without shame.
That's
You're
true.
called out and penalized for the exact same skill building, but we need to skill build. Of
Right.
course, there's going to be notifications going off, right? Unless we're intentional about really silencing those, or looking for tools or spaces that we can, that aren't competing for our attention. Um, so I really appreciate you bringing that to again, with such a complex and nuanced answer of not just, online sessions are wonderful, but here are the reasons that it may be a viable part of what it is we're doing in the 21st century. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I know we could talk all day, so I want to be aware of everyone who's listening, their time, and really give you final word for any final thoughts that you would want to tell prospective clients.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to commend them for just seeking. I think being a seeker is the first step, seeking support, figuring out and getting curious if this is the right fit. And I'm someone who's here to support curiosity and asking questions. I think there are many different ways you can come to this work, whether you've struggled for a long time or maybe it's a new moment for you in your struggle. I just think there are as many different kinds of dysregulation and attention dysregulation challenges as there are people. So I think what's really great about this one-on-one model, and what I'm really excited about with my clients is just really getting to know what brought them here. How can we make your life even just 1% better at the end of every session? And over time, can you, through your own self-awareness, gain a sense of what your hopes and dreams are? Because that is a big gift, to really have space, protected space, which we often don't have, for you to really dream big. What could a really great life for me look like? And my greatest joy is really co-collaborating with clients on creating lives that they're really proud of. And so I'm excited to partner with people in doing that.
I love that. And I have to say, when you say 1%, I recently heard a talk where they were talking about an airline pilot going to a destination. And if the airline pilot were to change by just 1 degree over the course of a 12-hour flight, that they'd end up in a totally different place.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know
I
that.
thought, right? And I
Yeah.
thought, what a fitting metaphor for executive functioning coaching.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes progress is fast and sometimes it's immediately visible, right? They
Hmm.
hit the writing assignment, it's out of the way. And sometimes it is a slog.
Hmm.
Sometimes it is, we are doing the 1%, the 1 degree change. And it is remarkable that you thought you were headed there and then you end up here. Thank you so much for taking the time to tell folks about you, to highlight your experience and your passion for this work. Courtney, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is such a pleasure to have you on the team.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.